Welcome everyone. Welcome to Health Awareness Campaign. My name is Raj Khilan. I'm a pediatrician and your host. As you're aware, at time we bring expert panel of team with us to discuss about medical issues, particularly related to Indian subcontinent or South Asian community. Today we have expert panel with us to discuss about organ donation. As you know, by donating organ, we can give a second chance to everyone. Who else after God can give that chance? It's only you by registering and donating your organ. To discuss about the organ donation, we have an expert panel of team with us. Dr. Shamla, she's an ICU consultant at Royal Melbourne Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Shamla.
Thank you, Raj. Hello.
We have Dr. Ravi Bangia, also an ICU consultant at Austin Hospital and Box Hill Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Ravi.
It's our pleasure and thank you, Raj.
We have with us Dr. Sam Redford, who's a Deputy Director of Donate Life Victoria and an ICU consultant at Austin Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Sam.
Raj, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you all of you for sparing your time and for educating our community. So first of all, I will start with you, Dr. Sam, about as you've been a very senior position in organ donation and Donate Life Victoria, how overall that system in Victoria works. Tell us a little bit about that.
So donation of organs, really there's a very small group that can come from living donors. That might be where I could give a kidney to, say, my child if they needed it. But the vast majority of donation comes from a very small group of people that die in the intensive care environment. And that's the area where Donate Life is really focused on.
So in this way, what I understood that the majority of donation happen in ICU setting where the person or patient is brain dead.
You're exactly right in saying that it happens in the ICU setting, and it's really, really rare. Less than 1% of Australians dying can actually donate from within that intensive care setting. It's not all brain death though. About 3/4 of the deceased donors come through the brain dead pathway, and about another 25% in Victoria come through what is called circulatory death, or what most people know and understand as death, which is when our heart stops and the blood stops flowing, but they still die in such a way that some of their organs can be used for donation.
All right. So coming just from the ICU setting, Dr. Shamla, because you've been working in one of the prestigious hospital of Victoria, Royal Melbourne Hospital as ICU consultant, and I just wonder about, like, some of the people, they do have some misconception about that if I register myself with the organ donation and if I'm in intensive care, and I might not get the similar quality of care because doctor might think, oh, we can use this organ for some other purpose. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that? How is it a misconception, or it's a people false belief, and how do, as an ICU consultant in that setting you work?
Yeah, it is a common misconception, Dr. Raj, because in intensive care, when we're treating patients, the patient's recovery is a priority. And attention to detail is really meticulous in intensive care. And when we say it's intensive care, it is not only the intensive care consultant, but it's a team of doctors looking after the patient, neurologist, cardiologist, and whichever specialty is required for the patient, we bring them in. And when we do reach a point where we think that we are not going to get this patient better, we have a team meeting. And we make sure that every one of us are very sure that we can't offer anything more for this patient. And at this point, we think in terms of organ donation. And there is one more thing to this. The intensivists are treating the patient, and when we reach a point and decide that the patient is not going to survive, then we involve the organ donation specialist, or either the nurse specialist or a medical specialist. So we are parallel teams working together for the best of the patient. Initially for the recovery, and when recovery is not possible, then give an opportunity to the family to think regarding donation.
Yeah. So in this way, what I understood that it directly ICU consultant is not involved with the organ donation, once the talk starts, as you said, that you will involve the organ donation team, which may be of a nurse specialist or maybe a ICU consultant, but different than what you are involved in that way. Am I right in that?
Yes, you are right, and especially in the major trauma hospitals where organ donation is extremely common, there we do have specialized teams embedded within the hospital. And so when we reach a point where we think that this is unsurvivable, we do get them involved, and they are the ones then who take the conversation ahead.
And why do we involve other person? Why the same ICU consultant can't do it this way? I believe there must be some rationale behind it. So can you tell us a little bit about what?
One thing is that the nurse specialists and medical specialists are specially trained in organ donation conversation. All intensivists are trained as well, but they are more exposed to these conversations. For example, our organ donation coordinators are nurses, and they are the ones who meet with the family and help the family in these kind of situations. So they are more aware of the needs of the family. And they actually, I'm sure Sam will be able to tell you more, but within the Donate Life Victoria, we have multiple workshops, almost on a monthly basis, where they train how to actually have a chat with the family, how to talk to the family, how to help the family in these kind of circumstances.
Yeah.
So we think they're, like we are specialists in intensive care and treating our patients, they are specialists in their own field.
Yeah. I think it made sense as you said that they are expert team, but does it reduce the chances of bias also?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, conflict of interest is definitely taken care of.
Fantastic, thank you. Dr. Ravi, would you like to give us some idea about what point, just extending talk from Dr. Shyamla, that what point we reach or when we reach the stage that, okay, this is the patient who is, now we need to start talking about organ donation, and how we reach to that position? Like, do we do some test, or is there any time frame we need to work on that?
Thank you, Raj, for asking this question. Very good question, though. So yes, there are certain tests, but before we conduct any tests, there are legislations, there are guidelines from the professional organizations, and in Australia and New Zealand, there have been very, very strict, careful guidelines and tests being designed around this process, and which most of the intensive care specialists follow. And there are certain preconditions which, as I said, needs to be met before we really trigger the whole process of doing these tests. So yes, there are tests which are done, and especially in Australia and New Zealand, by law, there are two specialists or doctors who have to go and perform the similar set of tests, and that really reduces the chances of error. And once those tests are finished or done, then we come out and say the patient's brain is dead and the recovery will be impossible from here.
Yeah. So it means by law in Australia and New Zealand, the decision of brain death is made by at least 2 ICU consultants.
Yes, that is correct, but it has to be 2 specialist doctors. Anyone can do the brain death testing. They are designed in a way that the 2 doctors can do it. They can be intensive care specialists as well, but they can be another doctors as well.
At least 2 specialists.
At least 2 specialists.
2 specialists should be there making the decision,
yes,
so that there is no chances of error in that.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I would like to add that the 2 doctors would be the senior doctors who are 5 years post-training from their undergrads.
Sam, can I ask you one thing? I mean, the whole atmosphere in ICU setting when somebody's loved one is in that position where you say you have to go and declare that, okay, is in a brain dead position, we cannot give him a good quality of life, cannot recover. It's a very emotionally challenging time for the whole family. And at the same time, we have to talk about, I mean, it's a big challenge as an ICU consultant for you to talk to the family of the organ donation, and particularly unexpected death happening in the family. And what are the tools you use here, or you have to look into that emotional and more, other aspect of the family going through that?
Thanks, Dr. Raj. You're absolutely right. It is so emotional. It's such a tough thing to come to work and walk in through the waiting room and see upset families. And it's tough to go and look in the eyes of our colleagues treating these patients and see upset colleagues that we can't get this person home. When you're the doctor communicating this, you do have to bottle up a little bit of that upset feeling, but you can't take it all away. And you have to treat that family exactly like you would want your family treated. You have to spell out what has been done, you have to check what they understand, you have to go through the testing, just like Ravi's described, and you have to give them the certainty that that testing gives so that they don't feel that they're making the decision on their own, that we, the doctors, are giving our professional opinion after our careful, considered assessment, and we're telling them that their loved one has died or that their loved one can't make it home. And we need to carry that burden on our shoulders so that they can go through the next part of that journey without feeling like they have had to make such a big monumental decision.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very emotionally challenging. And first thing is they are going through a unexpected a grieving of the news, what you say that, okay, that's your loved one is in a position where cannot recover anymore, help, intensive care, equipments, medications is not going to make any difference. And at the same time, they have to take this decision of donating organ for that the loved one is very emotionally challenging. We can really understand. There's going to be next step of that. Next question always comes, there's in our body we have many organs which can be donated. But would you like to give us a little bit of idea what other organ can be donated from the live intensive care perspective and from outside the intensive care perspective too?
Absolutely, I can talk about the particular organs, but it's also important to inject a break. When we go from talking about death and dying, we also then pause and take some time and get our specialist colleagues back to talk about the organs themselves. With regard to what organs can be donated, well, that is always growing, that list. But the common ones are lungs and heart in the chest, and then liver and kidneys in the abdomen. Most people are aware of those. What other people may not be aware of, though, is that the intestine, the pancreas, even the islet cells within the pancreas, that these organs can all be donated. And that's just from within the intensive care setting. There are people that die outside of the intensive care that can still go on and be tissue donors. So things like skin, things like muscle or tendons or bone, or even eyes, the corneas at the front of our eyes. I know it sounds like a big shopping list, but it is important to think that an individual donor can help save or enhance the lives of up to 10 people.
So one life can save 10 lives.
Certainly the organ donation part, the organs themselves, that's where life-saving happens. Tissue is life-enhancing. We can turn an athlete with a broken knee tendon back into a functioning part of society. We can turn a blind fireman who's been injured into someone who can see again. These are amazingly precious gifts that while they don't save lives, they absolutely enhance the life of that person and their family. So yes, one donor can impact the life of up to 10 people.
So Dr. Sam, that was absolutely right. And further to that, I just want to know in Victoria, and you said we know that you are a deputy director of Donate Life in Victoria. So what is the overall registration rate of Victorian particularly with the different organ donation, and if you can also give us a little bit idea about difference in registration rate on different community, particularly here I would be more interested with Indian subcontinent point of view.
Dr. Raj, it saddens me to say that the registration rate in Victoria is 25%, and we can do a lot better. And we've got great easy tools for accessing it online now, or paper-based tools if you wish to register. So 25% is far too low. So there's a 1 in 4 chance if I ring up to check if someone is on the registry that they'll be registered.
So just coming to more simple word, 25% means 25% of the Victorian are registered.
Yeah, we've got nearly 6 million Victorians and only
And
25% of them are
25%
registered.
are registered. Can we look into this? And do we have any different community rate? Like any idea about Indian community? Is it less than average Australian Victorian?
The honest answer is I don't know what the rate of registration in Indian populations is. My anecdotal experience of speaking to Indian families, or when we ring up to check in Indian families, my anecdotal experience is that the rate is lower than the broader community, but that doesn't mean that these families haven't spoken to each other and aren't aware of what their wishes or thoughts might be.
Yeah. And Dr. Ravi, you've been from Indian background, and just extending the talk from here, just wanted to know why, what are your thought comes in why, if Indian rate is, registration rate is that low, why it is so low?
Raj, there could be a number of reasons for Indian community not registering themselves for organ donation. So the few reasons which I can think of and I've come across is probably they were not aware of this service being available. I think we need to go out in the community with more information, and providing the information and opening their thoughts process is really the point to start. And there are other cultural or religious differences as well, like which I think could contribute to the incidence of organ donation amongst the Indian community. So I think these are the few reasons which I think are. I think education is the key here. If we provide proper education in this thing, I think Indian communities, we can create a great impact and turn them around, and they can be registered for organ donation.
Dr. Shamla, you would like to add anything in that? Is there any idea you have why we have such so less rate of organ donation?
Over and above what Ravi's already said, I think most immigrant Indian population come here as nuclear families, and we know traditionally that Indian families are, linked with their extended families very deeply, and most of the younger generation would like to discuss important things with their elders in the family before they make the decision. When they come here, they do feel really isolated, and they're already coping with a lot of things: how to inform the dad, how to inform the mom, how to inform the extended family that their loved one is dying here. And will they be able to come and see him? Will they be able to be with him at the time when he's dying? And I think these are really emotional things for them to deal with. And they are in that frame of mind where they're dealing with all this grief and how to actually give this information to their own family. And they're isolated. And the concept of organ donation is very complex. It's easy for us because we deal with it all the time. For them it's really complex. It's a new concept for them. And introducing this new concept at a time of their grief, it's challenging how we deliver it, but it's very challenging for them to receive it, take it, and then take the next step of actually donating it. And that is why I think it's really important for us to do these kind of programs to educate the public. And the second thing is to, encourage them to discuss it with their family at any time, not necessarily at the time of the event, but even in a normal conversation, talk about these things so that when if it does happen to them, unfortunately, then they're able to make a decision in the right way.
Raj, if I may, Shamal is absolutely right. It is all about people communicating with their families and making shared decisions together, and healthcare is really complex. Intensive care healthcare is really complex, with or without the death and dying. And that respectful way of involving your family, and they may not be in this country, they may be back in another country, of involving them in these really important decisions. That's a really important part of all of the big healthcare decisions we make in intensive care. And I'm sure, like me, you've sat there with families on the telephone to the cousin who's a doctor in India, or on Skype to the nephew who is a doctor in America. So those things are really important ways of involving family. And we do that with all of our big discussions in intensive care, whether it be about death or dying and donation, or just do we or don't we put them on dialysis. All of those big things, we need to involve families together. And when you're in that environment and feeling stunned and shocked and alone, it's important to know what your family thinks and feels.
Absolutely, you're right. So dear friend, we'll take a short break here and we'll be right back, and we will discuss more about organ donation and more about the steps, what steps we need to take to make the things better for our community. Stay tuned, we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You are watching Health Awareness Campaign. I'm Raj Khilan, and we are here with our expert team, Dr. Shyamla, Dr. Ravi Bangia, and Dr. Sam. And we are discussing about organ donation in Victoria, particularly related to our Indian sub-community. So extending our talk, Dr. Shyamla, would like to ask further about, we always talk about when you register for organ donation, you should discuss with your family. And I couldn't understand why we need to discuss to our family, and what's the importance of discussing with the family.
I think that's a really good question. It's very important to talk to the families, because it is the families at the time when the patient is in intensive care, it's the families which make most of the decisions, because the patient is not able to at the time. And especially when we come to a point where they are, they're not going to survive, they're not in a condition to make any decisions. So if the families know their wishes, then they're happily going to go ahead and support organ donation. But if they don't know what their loved one wanted, they would never be able to make that decision. So it's really important to talk to the families. And the other way around as well, you might ask me, why should I register if it's the families who have to make the decision? So what we know from statistics is that 90% of the people when people are registered, so we know that 90% of the families will give consent, and if the loved one is not registered, it falls down to 60%.
So what I understand, it means if I have registered myself and I talk to my family, there is a 90% chances that my family will say yes. And fulfill my wish of organ donation.
Correct.
And if I haven't spoken to my family, they will be taken aback with that decision at that time when they are overwhelmed, already emotionally challenged, and they might not accept that wish as what I wanted. Absolutely. And then it reduces from 90% down to 60%.
Yes.
That's a very, very interesting number to know, and puts the importance of discussing these important issues with your family. Dr. Ravi, would you like to add anything in that? Is there any other thing you would like to add in that way?
As in terms of the families and discussion, I think the families need to know your wishes, as Dr. Shyamla said. It's very important to come down to that decision, because this is a whole process, and we want something good to come out of this. This is a noble process we are doing. We try to unite the families together, and it's an opportunity to really bring all the distant relatives together and unite them together. And it's a very noble cause, as I said. And the families will agree to your wishes, as Dr. Shyamla said, if it comes down to they know your wishes.
Can I ask you one thing over here? When we're talking about family, it's a family could be a extended family. It includes your brother, your sisters, your parents, your children. And when it comes to the decision making after, who is the key person to make decision at that time up to fulfill your wish? And have you encountered that sort of a scenario in your life? And who makes the decision about the organ donation wishes which you have made?
There have been numerous instances where we have been challenged emotionally, even by the families, and the families we never get to a straight answer sometimes, and there are lots of conflict of interest amongst the families, and that's where we will involve the services from Organ Donation Victoria. And what we try to do in this situation is try to avoid any conflict of interest, but medically there is someone called as next of kin, who takes the responsibility of taking all the decisions. But in this situation, we will try to get all the family together, make them sit down, give them all the information, and then ask them to nominate a designated person whom we can go and talk to them and know about their decision. I think it's a time when we want to avoid any conflict of interest, and we want everyone to be happy of the outcomes of their near ones who's dying in intensive care unit.
Dr. Sam, would you like to add something in the, particularly in again, as you said, it's an emotionally challenging time for the whole family, and at the same time, family has been put to make decision, and there might be, suppose father of the patient will say that, okay, I don't want to donate the organ, and another member of the family will say, I want to go ahead with your donations. In this type of conflicting position, what services you involve as a Donate Life Victoria, and to reach to the more possible best outcome to maintain, to fulfill the wishes of the deceased one?
So thanks, Dr. Raj. So the number one thing that a donation specialist brings to that sort of challenging conversation is time and knowledge. And they can work with all of the family members, starting with the next of kin, the official next of kin, and make sure that everyone has all of the good quality information so that everyone's making an informed choice. We respect, though, that families are dynamic, that they talk to other family members, and though I might be the legal next of kin, I would respect the thoughts and opinions of my family, but I'd want those thoughts and opinions to be carefully informed with a proper Australian context to know about our health system. And so what Donate Life does in these situations is we give families quality information so that they come together and they make a lasting decision, that they can go away from this terrible tragedy of their loved one dying, and they can all look back and say, we made a good choice. Now that choice will be right for them, whether it is to donate or not to donate, but that will be an informed choice that they can live with comfortably.
And just going away from this topic to another one, like we talked about what other organ can be donated, but is there any medical condition which restricts you to donate, or is there any age which restricts you to donate any organ? So is there any limitations for the organ donation?
The short answer is that the list of things that stop you from donating is getting smaller and smaller by the day, and that for the people at home thinking, oh, I've got diabetes or I've got bad blood pressure, those sorts of people donate organs all the time. So we used to have very strict criteria about age and about illness. I don't even remember them anymore, because I assess every single donor offer and I look at that and I put it carefully to the transplant teams who think about the really sick recipients in front of them, and it changes on a day-to-day basis. There are some absolutes, things like blood-borne cancers like a leukemia or a myeloma. These would rule you out because those cancer cells can spread throughout all of the organs. But the list of absolutes is getting smaller and smaller all the time.
Yeah. Dr. Shyamala, I just wanted to ask you, from religious, just going back to the limitations point of view, religious and cultural limitations, and particularly you being from Indian subcontinent, would like to know, is there any religious or cultural limitations we have in our community? In fact, I would like to ask one after one, both of you.
Mm-hmm. We are not aware of any religion that opposes organ donation. In fact, I think Donate Life Victoria has done a lot of work and met with the religious leaders of, for example, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhists, etc. And all religious leaders have actually supported organ donation. And if you go to our website on Donate Victoria, you would actually see those certificates where the religious leaders have endorsed on the approval for organ donation. However, what we need to really consider is when we talk about religion, we have some religious prescription on our religious books. And further on, it's the interpretation of our religious leaders. And then it comes to individuals and families. It is what you as an individual have interpreted from the religion. And if you have an opportunity, you need to talk to your religious leader and find out what is the best way you would like to interpret it and what you would like to do. Most religions support this noble cause. Most religions would like to help other people, human beings and mankind really. So I don't think there's anything religious-wise. And from the cultural point of view, again, culture is made of a group of people who share, a common
belief, common thoughts.
Yeah. And culturally, again, I don't think there is any limitations for organ donation at all, culturally. The main thing which is related to organ donation and death is the funeral arrangements that the dying person will need. And there are some, I think, religious and cultural beliefs that the body needs to be cremated within 24 hours. And with our excellent team, Donate Life, we can facilitate that if they wish to be an organ donor. So I'll just pass it on to Ravi if he had something.
Yes, Dr. Ravi.
I've come across certain instances where people have come and asked, would the body be disfigured after organ donation? I think that's where they are more worried about that their loved one after the death has been disfigured just because the organs have been taken out. So we have carefully sat down with them and explained them this is a process done in operating theaters, and all the incisions are very nicely done, and most of the times, in fact, every time you don't get to see the sutures and the body is not disfigured at all. So we take utmost care and respect for the dying one. And this is where, and I think that's where it's helped us to move forward. So there are a few differences there, but if we can talk to them and sit down and explain them, I think most of the times we have been able to convert them around to being an organ donor. And that's what it is. I think most of the religions would not, they always promote helping other mankind. And that's where the ultimate thing which comes out from every religion. And that's what our religion or every belief from India as well.
Yeah, thank you. Just picking back to our original discussions before the break, we were talking about the registration rate is 25% in Victoria. And correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, to me it looks like it's quite low. Despite all the hard work we are putting in, despite all the knowledge we have, the best medical facilities we have, why we think that there is only 25%? Why we are so low? And what we need to do, where we are lacking behind, and how we can improve this rate in Australia so that more and more life can be saved.
Raj, the reasons behind why we've got low registration are complex, but the simpler elements of that have been people have mistakenly believed that they were registered and they weren't. Over a decade ago, there was a change from linked databases between the motor vehicle registration and organ donation registration. And most people still feel that link is there in their mind, but that link was severed some time ago. One of our initiatives here recently in Donate Life Victoria is to try and forge that link back again to encourage people when they are looking at registration to drive them across to registering for organ donation as well. Organ donation registration hadn't been as simple as we would have liked it for quite some time. There were complicated paper forms. Those are simpler still now. They're available in Medicare offices. But the biggest barrier had been our website to registering, that it needed not only registering on the web but then following up with a second mailed back registration. That's all been made a lot smoother, and we're very thankful to the federal government for improving that. And it can now be done, and I'll be quite shameless in my plug to say you can now be done at www.donatelife.gov.au, and you can go on there and you can register, and it takes less than a minute, and it's really straightforward. If you're using other web portals like MyGov, whether you've got linking to your Medicare card or some pensions, then through MyGov you can also register as well. So there were broken links. Those links are being made simpler and easier, and we'll encourage everyone to take on the right fit for them, whether it be web or paper-based.
And that is probably for overall Victoria-wise. But coming back to, being Indian, we carry a lot of responsibility for our own community. How, Dr. Ravi, do you think we can make the things better for our community to increase the registration rate, organ donation rate in our community?
I think education and communication are the two key basics here. I think if we go around, and there are lots of medias available, as Sam said, so we can encourage them to register themselves on Organ Donate Victoria. We can also do it as on a person-to-person basis when we meet them around in the community workshops or in religious festivals and different social media websites. We have got our different organizations, so different communities in Victoria, Indian communities in Victoria have got their own organizations, talking to them and spreading the word around. I think it's just going out there in community and telling them this is a service available. I think that's where we can really create a massive impact on these. And Indian community is growing every day here in Victoria. And you can see we've got now our own film festivals happening. We can go and promote all these activities there, and we can tell people that this is such a good service available for all the Indians in health if they need it in future.
Thank you. Dr. Shyamala, any other thought you have in your mind?
I think from the education point of view, I think Ravi has covered most of it. But I think one more thing that we can do is at university level and school level as well. Although it will be directed at the entire Victorian student population, definitely it will be multicultural, including the Indian students. And there are some special Islamic schools as well, where we can we can approach the school authorities and see if we can actually spread the word. And the second very important thing that I do want to say is it's not only among Indian communities, I'm sure it's among other cultures as well. Talking about death is a taboo, especially for the younger generation in front of the older generation. If they talk about their death, it's taboo. They say, no, don't speak about it. So I think we have to overcome that barrier. We have to be able to be comfortable to talk about death. And when we are able to talk about that comfortably, then we can move on and actually talk about organ donation. And after all, the only thing we really own when we are alive is our organs. And we have to exercise our rights in actually stating what we want our organs, where we want our organs to go when we die. And that I think that open communication needs to happen in our families, in all our families, whether the Indians or non-Indians.
I'll get back to you about the right question you asked, where the organ goes to. But before that, let me just come back to Sam about the improving the services point of view, particularly for our Indian and subcultural continent point of view. So as it's been, Dr. Ravi and Shyamala raised the concerns that yes, education plays a very important role. Going to our community plays an important role. Community organization, ethnic associations, they can play a role. I just want to ask from Organ Donate as a association point of view from you, if some cultural association, ethnic associations, like we have nearly in Victoria around 100 Indian associations, those who are working with the different communities, state-wise, ethnic association, they might come up after seeing this program to you that, hey, we want to help you, we want to improve this rate, and how they should approach you or Donate Organ or Donate Life, and what should be the contact, who should be the contact?
We hope they do contact us. And if you go through the website I listed before, donatelife.gov.au, you'll be able to find the Victorian link, and through there you'll be able to send an email. We've got dedicated community staff members who can work with volunteers, and we do fabulous things. We help spread the message, and that might just be a simple stand at a cultural festival like Diwali or like Holi. But we're also able to award grants or participate in funding particular sporting endeavours like hockey or cricket or other important cultural endeavours like that, where there can be some opportunity for a shared promotion.
Yeah. And just in terms of the grant point of view, if this ethnic association or any other association come to you to promote the message of organ donation in their community, because you know that these communities are migrant community and financially they're not that strong, so they will need some sort of funding to spread that message. So is there some funding from Donate Life or from Multicultural Department or Department of Health is available, or is there any source they can?
There are indeed. So the funding all comes through us through the federal government, and so there are particular grants awarded at various times of the year, and we'd encourage people to get in touch with a community project in mind, and we can help them with their applications for that, to help strive towards that mutual goal of an empowered, informed community, and also improving donation rates and donation understanding in that community.
Fantastic. I'm sure after watching this, many people will approach you, Sam. Just coming back to you, Dr. Shyamla, about where this organ goes to. You touched base, very nice question. I just want to ask you, people always ask about, I donate my organ. Can I designate particular person's name or particular ethnicity name, particular religion name? If I'm from particular that religion, should it go to that? Can we put that in our wish?
So the answer to that question is that organs go to the people who most need it. And the way the Donate Life and the entire system works is that we have a list of patients, and it depends on the matching of the organs, and whosoever needs most and matches the organs gets the organs. So we do some specific DNA genetic testings to see if the organ will match. So it might happen, because the genetic pool of the Indians is probably similar, it may happen that the Indian donors will probably match better with Indian recipients. But of course, we can't this is called directed donation, and we don't encourage directed donations.
Yeah. Sam, from Donate Life point of view, would you like to add anything in that?
We can't do directed donations. The gift has to be freely given. It has to be given to the broader community, and we have to rely on trust that it is going to a needy and respectful recipient who really, really needs this to save their life. Not because of who they are or what religion they are, or worse still, how wealthy they are, but because they are sick and unwell and they need this and will look after this. And those people are carefully chosen, and they're there all the time. There's still a waiting list, but we can't direct organs to other people.
Thank you, Sam.
And as a doctors in intensive care, we don't do religious-based treatment for the patients. So that's the aspect we never think about. And I think organs don't have any religion. So we would like this gift to be given to everyone who is in the dire need of that, and we can save the life of that patient.
Thank you, Ravi. We respect that. And at the end, because we're running short of time, I would like to ask one by one a very short message for the community. Any short message you want to give it to our community?
Organ donation is a very, very noble cause, so I'd really encourage every one of you to register and also talk to your families. I know it's not a dinner table conversation, but try to make it in your usual conversation so that your family is aware of your desires.
And my message to the community is, please register yourself to Organ Donate Victoria, and this is a very great cause, and you can really help someone who's almost dying and really can give them a good gift of life.
Dr. Sam.
My final message is, in fact, you're far more likely to need a transplant in your life than you are to be a donor. It's so incredibly rare. Get out there, get your wishes known, and just like my colleagues have said, register, that's step one. And then step two is talk to your family. Thanks, Raj.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you,
It was our
Raj.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, friends, for watching. As you know, we were talking about organ donation. This is for the noble cause. As Dr. Sam said, there's a far more chances that we may need organ donation for ourselves than donating for someone else. We don't promote a direct donation, but donation can be for any religion, any ethnicity, and any age. It's a noble cause. Get on board, go and register on donatelife.co.au and save many lives. Give a second chance to so many Australians and maybe to your own community. Thank you. We will be back in another fortnight with another program. Keep watching. Thank you. Thank you.